Look, I made the film Endgame 9 years ago. I showed hundreds of quotes, video clips of global elite admitting they treat us like creatures in a petri dish. They're manipulating us. They're playing games with us. And all I'm saying is, I don't like this, and I want to change it. I want to turn this around. I'm going to go to your phone calls right now. I'm not going to belabor this. We're running the biggest specials so far of the year during the Cyber Monday. All the Black Friday specials are extended. 50% off colloidal silver, silver bullet, 30% off super male vitality. There's a whole bunch of specials, 40% off high-quality storable foods. Free shipping with the promo code on top of it, free, F-R-E-E, InfoWarsStore.com. And that's what makes the broadcast possible. I've noticed that one of the main establishment attacks was, oh my gosh, they sell stuff. Yeah, we don't have Mercedes-Benz as sponsors. We don't have Barnes & Nobles as sponsors. We have some sponsors on the network, and we have some sponsors as well. That pays about 30% of it. We direct sell products. And so that's how we fund this operation. So we couldn't do it without you. You see the big effects were happening. You see us all over the news being attacked. It's because we're effective, and the enemy knows we're having a big effect. So thank you all for the support. InfoWarsStore.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. And as I said, whatever's going on in Central Texas, it's kind of like that movie, The Happening, I think is the name of it, where the trees release the pollen and kill everybody. I used to think when I was in high school that friends of mine that didn't go to two-a-days and said they had allergies were hypochondriacs. I thought it was fake. My allergies have gotten a lot better as I've lost some weight and stuff, but right now, half the office is sick or more and out. This is legendary. I mean, it feels like my lungs have a bucket of fire ants in them right now. So I'm not trying to talk all deep and cool here with you. In fact, I'm using it on my bedside. This is not a plug. Somebody run me in some, got taken away some lung cleanse. I haven't thought of that. That's what helps me at night, sleep. A bunch of essential oils. Yeah, they sell stuff for like $20. It's like menthol and a couple other things. This is dozens of essential oils. The only problem is it's so thick, you got to, every other time you use it, wash out the sprayer tip. Because it's so thick, it will not spray through it. Thank you. So this is a new package of it. I need to take this home because I've had a package for about 6 months. I haven't really gone through it yet, but it's almost empty. This is the ultimate lung cleanse thing out there. But I tell you, we are under such assault, all the GMO, the glyphosate, all the rest of it. And I wanted to be on here today, so I apologize. But we'll see how that does. Because let me tell you, it is fun. Now, getting back to Matt Bracken of enemiesforeignanddomestic.com, I want to go to your phone calls right now and take your questions and comments. But I feel guilty that I'm not able to get excited enough and upset enough, Matt, about Hillary wanting a recount, the Black Lives Matter running around groups calling for cops being killed. They're shooting them almost every day dead. And the media, even CNN's like, well, they're cops. They deserve to die. It's their job. The random killing of people is such an authoritarian thing.
Well, I think they're just pulling out all the stops. I'm very I'd like to say something about cops. You know, in my youth, I was a Navy SEAL, not career, but you know, when I was junior officer. I couldn't be a cop for 2 weeks. I guarantee you. I mean, I'd absolutely lose my mind. I'd go into some house and see child abuse going on, and I would flip out. So, how you can be a social worker and carry a gun at the same time is something that I couldn't juggle personally.
I totally agree. Just watching it and covering it drives me crazy.
I couldn't do it. So how you can expect to make a nanosecond decision, life or death, and they're going to dissect that nanosecond into a billion micro nanoseconds and hang you on it, when day in and day out, you're seeing motor vehicle accidents, you're seeing domestic abuse situations and elder abuse and child abuse, and to be able to keep a serenity inside and not go home and be a psycho in your own house to your own children. So I give all honor and respect to law enforcement that can juggle all of that and balance all of that, because I know within my own heart and my own soul, I wouldn't last two weeks as a cop at any level. I couldn't do it.
Matt, that's well said.
I couldn't carry that job. I couldn't do it. So God bless the police. Without them, there was a famous incident in Montreal, Canada, about 30 years ago. Maybe it was in the 70s, where the police went on strike, and immediately every jewelry store was hit. You know, as soon as the criminals figured out this was for real, the police have gone on strike. It was complete mayhem, immediate. So there are, you know, thousands, even millions of predators out there without any morals or scruples or conscience, that if they knew that the police were out of the way, they would absolutely wreak havoc on society. And that, I think, is part of the whole deal with this cabal between Soros, the propaganda media, and the Democrat Party, is to break the morale of the police. Just get them to either stay in their patrol cars, you know, hide behind Dunkin' Donuts, don't get out there and mix it up, don't do your job. Just basically demoralize law enforcement. And I think that's.
I agree, but hasn't it backfired? Hasn't it backfired?
I hope so, but it remains to be seen. It certainly isn't going to help minority neighborhoods if the police won't go in there, because then you're just handing over control to the gangs completely. So, I mean, yeah, obviously there are bad cops, and obviously some cops go on a power trip, and maybe some people come into law enforcement because they've got like a latent power urge to be a bully sort of thing. But I don't think by far most cops, I believe.
Sure, by far, though.
They want to be the sheepdog.
Cops aren't where, I agree, cops aren't where the revolution happens. And the fact that Soros and the mainstream media want to make that the main focal point, we can deal with the cops that have problems. The issue is that this is an attempt to destabilize the whole country. Mark in California, you're on the air with Mr. Bracken. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having Matt on KOMY 1540. I really appreciate that. You know, Matt and Alex, when we think about King Cyrus, he's much more than a king, because this is he of whom it is written, behold, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. And when Trump came out and just was honest about Castro, I can't tell you what that did for me. You know, all these lying commies, talking about how great the man was. He's a despicable communist, and he's going to go to hell on Judgment Day. And when we think about how Trump has appointed these guys, I mean, think about it. We've gone from Eric Holder, who says we have to, quote, brainwash them to hate guns, and what's her name, Loretta Lynch, for Attorney General, that after, San Bernardino happened, she says, we'll prosecute you to the full extent of the law if you speak against Muhammad, to Jeff Sessions. And we need to pray for Jeff and pray that God will fight with outstretched arm, against Chucky Schumer and such. And, because this is really exciting. This is exciting. This is God. It's the
I agree. And the enemy is crapping themselves and is planning something in the next 53 days. Thank you, Mark. Comments on that, Matt?
This is a civil war. This is a civil war. We are in a civil war. Make no mistake. It's not at the shooting in streets phase of a civil war, but believe me, like he put his finger right on it. Holder and Lynch, and then Jeff Sessions, this Jay Johnson, and then General Flynn. This is tectonic. This is Richter scale 12.
It's opposites.
It is opposites, and they're not going to just quit.
Let me ask you this, because obviously none of us could war game this and know how it's going to go. But hypothetically, we're not calling for this. If they suspend things, say Trump lost, let's say they kill Trump, say, oh, he's died in a helicopter crash, Hillary's coming in or whoever, and announce that we're shutting down, the fake press, that's us, they're going to arrest us. We're not looking for trouble, but when folks try to pull up and take us off to the re-education center, I guess all bets are off. I just want to make sure, because it won't do anything. The foolish cops or anybody else, the young military officers, how do we get around them to the real targets?
There aren't enough. There aren't enough, especially the fleas, the federal law enforcement agents. There just aren't enough. The math doesn't work. All of the power of the state could barely get to Louisiana after Katrina. And
no, I agree. So why are they so arrogant? Because they've taken our restraint as weakness when there are like millions of veterans, many of which I know, that aren't looking for trouble. They're not scared to die. They are ready to just dominate. And I don't think. Not
only that, I would recommend people read some of my essays, like the Civil War II Cube, which is sort of like a Rubik's Cube showing the demographic, cultural, and geographical axes that the Civil War will be fought on, or my other essay, When the Music Stops, How America's Cities May Explode in Violence. If you look at the red-blue county map, most of the food grows in the red counties. Most of the energy comes out of the ground in the red counties.
I was about to say, we have 90% geographically. In military nomenclature, isn't that total dominance?
Well, and they say, well, we have more people, we won the popular vote. A lot of people is not an advantage if you can't feed them. A lot of people is a tremendous...
No, it's true. The communists and the globalists want to play this capitulation game. I'm not looking for this, but if they want to take the gloves off, don't they in a bare knuckles fight, we kick their ass?
Well, if you look at the Russian Revolution, when the Russians came home from World War I, they were carrying Mosin Nagant rifles and swords and pistols, revolvers, but they were disarmed very quickly by the communists.
They ordered it, and the people turned them in.
That's right.
That's not going to happen this time.
But then they could go out in the countryside and they could literally steal the food from farmers, leave nothing in the Ukraine, take the grain from the Ukraine and leave the Ukrainians to starve. That would absolutely not work in the United States of America. The other big factor is our agriculture now is big mass industrial agriculture. It's not a family farm. So if the transportation infrastructure breaks down and there's no oil and fertilizer going out to the farms, then there's no food going anywhere.
And the power will be in the small, self-sufficient family farms.
That's right. So it'll be a starvation.
So I'm not looking for trouble, but if they want to push this, into a hot war, they're entering our briar patch.
And in the last occasions that we could use as references of the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution, they were able to harness and militarize the urban population, go out into the countryside with guillotines and execution squads in Russia and take the food by force. They would never be able to take the food by force in this country. It would be a suicide mission for
every good old boy, and I don't care what color they are, isn't looking for trouble. They are locked and loaded and ready to kill.
And forget about the AR-15 so-called assault rifles. Yeah, that's interesting. They're fun to plinkle and steal
50
with.
cals everywhere.
It's just the basic Remington 730-06 with the cheap Bushnell scope on top. That's a 500-yard rifle.
Everybody's got that.
Millions of them. There's millions of them.
Can you imagine if they try to march a communist army of pot-bellied dumbasses in against us, what'll happen?
Well, at the first bridge, it would just be a choke point, and after that, it would be impassable. Because somebody laying in a culvert 500 yards from the bridge will be able to stop anybody. There just aren't enough drones and helicopters to play, some kind of video game war where they go out and...
No, I agree. I hear from the leftists, their favorite statement is, we got drones, we'll kill you. Look, we're not looking for a war, dumbasses, but if you physically want to start one, you really have no idea what you're dealing with.
And who do they think the drone operators are? They're military, and they're 90% on our side. They come from the red counties. So believe me, it would be a starvation event for the entire country, but the cities would absolutely implode into cannibalism.
We've killed 55 million babies. Maybe we deserve that. Let's take a call from Chris in Virginia. You're on the air. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it seems like to me that you're a pretty bright person and thorough with your research. So I was wondering if you picked a long time ago the battle that you was going to fight, to go after the globalists and go that route and expose them, as opposed to going after them Satanists, which I believe is the real issue.
It's the same people.
It's the same people. It's the same people.
We took over the Republican Party with Trump. I mean, we mean to win. Everybody doesn't realize the power of the individual. I'm not here on some power trip, but I mean, I talk to the president. I talk to everybody else, generals, you name it. The people, they care. They're waiting for leadership, too. The fact that we amassed this huge audience has given them the power. And I don't say that to brag, but let me tell you something, InfoWars, you, the listeners, you are what gives them the power to do this that's happening now, my friend.
And it's not a question of us choosing the time. Eventually, I mean, we're sort of like racing towards the edge of a plateau where there's a cliff, like in Indiana Jones or the Flight of the
Exactly.
Phoenix.
We don't want this event horizon. We've been pushed into this.
It's coming anyway. It's like what Trotsky said, you may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. And like it or not, eventually the global financial structure, which is a house of cards soaked in gasoline, eventually that's going to implode. The ATMs are not going to work. The EBT system is not going to work. The credit cards aren't going to work. And a week after that, our cities will not be recognized.
And whether you're rich or poor, that affects you the same way. Exactly. And I take it, Matt Bracken, in the last 5 years, we reported it before anybody else did, but it's now admitted, the elite going to armored redoubts all over the world, hiring huge security teams who are my listeners, who are ready to turn on them in an instant. That seems to be their Achilles heel. They're already evacuating. That shows they've already lost.
Right. A plan to ride a tiger is not the same as riding a tiger. So, when this house of cards burns down, it's going to burn.
Well, Matt, do they have any idea how much the Blackwater and all the other folks that on average are good people that are guarding them, how much they hate them? I talked to these folks. I don't think they have any idea that they think they've got a 50-man team guarding them in New Zealand. They have no idea. Those guys are just waiting.
I know somebody that works in your neck of the woods up in Amarillo at Pantex, and he's a ex-special operations guy who now makes high dollar for unscrewing nukes and putting them back together. And he tells the security guards inside of the locked facility, "Thanks for carrying my gun until I need it." And that's how the Blackwater guys look at their so-called employers. "Thanks for letting me drive your armored Mercedes until I need it." Because you'll be on the curb at best.
I know, they're so stupid. They're sitting there in armored redoubts with 50 killers.
Right.
And these guys have no respect for them because they're traitors. Do they have any idea they're just sharpening their knives, just waiting?
And imagine if the traitors that they're guarding are, abusing children around the swimming pool while the Blackwater guys are watching. They're not happy about it, believe me. The Blackwater guys have a plan to bring their own families to the redoubt after they, get rid of their so-called bosses.
I know. They
should know that.
They are so freaking stupid, aren't they?
They are. Absolutely.
Skip this break. Let's go to more calls. Did I just talk to Chris or did I just talk to John? All right, Howard in Arkansas. You're on the air.
Yes. Hello, Alex. Hello, Matt.
Thanks. Hi.
Yeah, your phone's breaking up, Howard. Go ahead. Yeah, we're going to move on. You're having phone trouble. Andrew in Minnesota. You're on the air. Andrew, go ahead.
Hi, Alex. I had just a couple of quick points, if I could. One is that I think you would agree that language can be very powerful. And, when you talk about illegal aliens voting in our elections and everything, it just seems to roll off people's backs. But, there are also Mexican citizens. So I think it would garner more outrage if we were saying Mexican citizens are voting in our elections and Mexican citizens are draining our government resources and things like that. It changed the perspective I think a lot of people have.
No, I agree. And it's not that we're against the Mexicans. It's that they wouldn't let us engage in that. And this is a joke that is going on. Democrats everywhere are passing laws that let illegals vote. Then they say Trump is a conspiracy theorist to say 3 million illegals were on the voting rolls. They were.
Right. They give them the voter card with their driver's license. I also think that it's very immoral for us to let Carlos Slim and these Mexican billionaires, to let them just push the poor and the poorest people out of their country to go to America to send checks back. I say send those people back to Mexico now that they've had a taste of freedom and opportunity. Send them back to Mexico with an instruction for a revolution for a true free market in Mexico, and not this crony oligarch kind of a system that they have perpetuated. And I'd also want to see Trump start building this wall very fast, because that will be a visual galvanizing experience. After 30 years of hearing to politicians talk about protecting that fence, that wall, or excuse me, even building any kind of a barrier, virtual fences, drones that never take off. When we actually see a fence being built from the Gulf of Mexico to San Diego, it's going to be galvanizing. It's going to mean this is for real. I think that's when we will see self-deportation, a lot of self-deportation.
Yeah, exactly. All we care about is the criminals self-deporting. It's that they're meant to be brought here, the Democratic Party operatives. Thank you, Andrew.
And I bear them no ill will, and I wish that they go back to Guatemala, El Salvador, and Mexico and force their leaders to be responsible to the entire country. and not just use America as their safety blow-off valve.
Jim in Georgia, you're on the air.
Hello, Alex. This is Jim down here in Georgia. Say, I spent my time in the military. I did 6 years in the infantry, got out back in 83. In 1988, I started getting involved in a local militia up in Wisconsin, where I was from originally. In 1994, actually spring of 95, a manual came into the possession of our company commander, who had he was a Vietnam vet with some black ops in Northern Africa, and I believe it was one of his friends from the inside that might have gotten it to him, but it's called an FM 4110, a military civil affairs operations manual. It says on the cover, it doesn't say classified or top secret, but it does say on the cover, destruction notice, destroyed by any method that will prevent disclosure or reproduction of this document. Well, they failed in their mission because this man ran a couple hundred copies, and I got the first one off the press. But that was about the only one that got released. It may have been 2 or 3 others, because it wasn't long after that his log cabin burnt down in the middle of the night. Luckily, the dog woke up his son.
Okay, well, I happen to pretty much know everything about that kind of stuff, so tell me what it supposedly says.
You know, the 4110. All right, we disclosed it to the Milwaukee Sentinel Journal in 1995.
Sure, so what did it say?
All right, in this manual, the military made the statement to the paper that yes, there is such manual. It was developed only for use in foreign countries during times of war. Well, it talks in here about guest troops coming to host nations to quell civil disturbances and other major problems, and it's implemented after a martial law. I find it funny that they'd say it was for foreign countries, because in my copy it has a map of the continental United States broken into...
Sure, let me bring this up. I don't know about the particular thing you're mentioning, but I've read the Washington Post, Toronto Star on air about 12, 14 years ago, where they said, we'll use Mexican and Canadian troops to quell terrorism and civil disobedience in America. That's actually in my film, Police State 2, The Takeover. So I know I've read those plans, very, very bold plans. Let's get Matt Bracken's take on that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that manual. I've seen other manuals talking about civil affairs, which, clearly show plans for setting up, detention camps and things like that are pretty scary. But like I always say,
that's the civilian inmate labor camp program. That's admitted, yeah.
But a plan to ride a tiger is not the same as riding a tiger. Anybody, talk is cheap and manuals are cheap, but they got to remember that the people that they're depending on, it's just like the Blackwater guards for these elites in their redoubts and retreats. The people that they think are going to be rounding us up are us. It's not going to work. What I could much more likely see.
By the way, let me ask you this, and then continue. Would you say 90% of actual trained troops, special forces people, operators are patriots, just because that's the type of folks they are?
Well, you have to distinguish between combat arms and some logistics and support. A lot of the bases that I've been on, it almost seems like a welfare program has been instituted in the last 20 years.
Sure, but I mean, all the real people that actually put themselves in line for death. The war fighters seem to all be dialed into freedom.
Yes, they are, and they're very much so. And it's very rare to meet a war fighter who is a liberal. Although I will say that both Petraeus and McChrystal are on record as being against civilians owning semi-automatic rifles, which worries me a lot. But they're just, the higher up that they go, it seems like they select for sycophancy and for go along to get along.
They smoke the dope.
Right. They want to become a member.
Sure.
Of
so
the
what
elite.
number? What 95% though warfighters are patriots?
Of combat arms of 04, major and lieutenant commander and below, I would say 90% are patriots in that way, and they definitely believe in the Constitution and defending it against all enemies, foreign
and they're not afraid
domestic.
to kill people. That's folks you understand.
And if they're told they're to take these 10 buses from the base to go to some subdivision and round everybody up, the people who give that orders are much more likely to be hanged from the flagpole than those buses go out
and let's say the first roundup, maybe they don't hang, but once they see families mowed down, then it's over.
It's over, and the people that would be going along with any orders, and I'm going to be nonpartisan in this case. If it was, no matter who said we're going to go round up the Jews, the Muslims, the blacks, I don't care. It wouldn't go down. It wouldn't be successful. The people giving those orders would be hung. They should know that. That's why I say it. They should know that.
Well, powerful interview, Matt Bracken, enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. I'm going to come back and hand the baton to David Knight. Thank you for so much insight. We really appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for having me on, Alex.
You've had a very important interview. Stay with us. 4th hour straight ahead. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, see, I told you so, that communist Chinese-style net censorship was coming to the web, because it's already here. It's being announced. The way you keep the internet open and free is you get involved more than ever. Go to Infowars.com/app. A new battleship in the fight. Infowars Live, available right now. We're looking for a crew to man it. You going to sit down and play games and be a trendy? Or are you going to be part of history? Don't sit by and let the internet and free speech be stolen from you. Take action.